So we're going to finish up this foldable by multiplying decimals. The first step when you multiply decimals is basically just to multiply them as you would a whole number. So we're really going to just ignore the decimal when we multiply until the very end. Then after we're done multiplying, we're going to place the decimal, and I'll show you how to do that when we get to the examples. And the way we're going to do that is that the number of decimal places in the product and the answer is the same as the number of decimal places in the factors. So we're going to need to know how many decimal places are in the factors and put the same amount in the product and the answer. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and set this up so I can multiply it. 1.159, remember that dot means multiply, times 0.03. Now notice when I set this problem up, I didn't line up the decimal place. I do when I'm adding and subtracting, we did over here for adding and subtracting, but when you're multiplying, you really ignore that decimal until the very end. So we can even pretend like it's not even there. And if it's not there, then we don't have to line anything up. All right, so now I'm just gonna multiply. 3 times 9 is 27, carry your 2. 3 times 5 is 15, plus 2 is 17, carry your 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. 3 times 1 is 3. All right, then I could start with my 0, but what's gonna happen when I multiply by 0? I'm just gonna get a whole row of zeros. And when I add, that's not gonna change what this number is. So I'm gonna skip that step. Multiplying by these 2 zeros isn't gonna change my answer. The last step is to figure out where the decimal point goes. So I've ignored it until now, and now I have to deal with it. The way that I do that is I count the number of decimal places in the 2 numbers I multiplied. So I can see here's my decimal. After the decimal, there are 1, 2, 3 digits. Okay, after this decimal here, there are 1, 2 digits here. So if I add those together, 3 plus 2, I get 5. That means in my answer, I need to have 5 decimal places. All right, so what I do is I always start from the back, and I'm going to count up 5 places. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need to move it one more place. So when that happens, you have to fill in with a 0, and that's telling me that my decimal point is going to go right here in front of that 0. So the answer to this is 0.03477. Now, if you want to put another 0 in front of the decimal, you can. It's just not necessary. You don't have to have it there. So again, what did I do? I multiplied like I normally would, okay, ignoring the decimal, and then at the very end, I counted. So there were the 1, the 5, and the 9. Those are 3 digits behind the decimal. So that's where the 3 came from. Then I counted these digits here, the 0 and the 3. That was 2. When I added 3 plus 2, I got 5, which tells me there needs to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 decimal places in my answer, all right? And when I don't have enough, you add a 0. All right, let's look at the second one. We're gonna have 0.45 times, or 0.45, times 5.3. And again, I'm not lining up the decimal. I only do that with adding and subtracting. I don't need to do it here. I don't have to fill in the zeros until the very end if I need them. All right, so 3 times 5 is 15, carry your 1. 3 times 4 is 12, and 3 times 0 is 0, so I add the 1. Then when you start a second row, when you have a second number to multiply by, you start with a 0. So 5 times 5 is 25, carry your 2. 5 times 4 is 20, plus the 2 is 22, carry your 2. 5 times 0 is 0, plus the 2 is 2. All right, add them up. 5 plus 0 is 5, 2 plus 5 is 7, 1 plus 2 is 3, and then I bring down the 2. Again, I still need to figure out where the decimal place goes. So I'm going to count the digits. There are 1, 2 decimal places, the 4 and the 5, behind the decimal. Here there's 1 digit, just the 3. When I add up 2 plus 1, I get 3. That's telling me in this answer, I need 3 decimal places. So starting at the back, I'm going to go forward 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. That tells me to put the decimal between 2 and 3. 2.375 is my final answer for number 2. Okay? 2 decimals, 1 decimal, 1, 2, 3 decimal places. Number 3 says, Jennifer makes $8.75 an hour walking dogs. She walks dogs for 2.5 hours per week. How much does she earn each week? All right, so I'm taking this amount for this many hours. That's a multiplication problem. So I'm going to go ahead and set that at 8.75 times 2.5. Okay, and just noticing again, you don't have to line up the decimal when you multiply. 5 times 5 is 25, carry your 2. 5 times 7 is 35, plus 2 is 37, carry your 3. 5 times 8 is 40, plus 3 is 43. Start your second row with a 0, and then 2 times 5 is 10, carry your 1. 2 times 7 is 14, plus 1 is 15, carry your 1. 2 times 8 is 16, plus 1 is 17, and now it's time to add. 5 plus 0 is 5, 7 plus 0 is 7, 3 plus 5 is 8, 4 plus 7 is 11, carry your 1, 1 plus 1 is 2. All right, go back and figure out your decimal place. There are how many digits behind the decimal? 1, 2. There are how many digits behind the decimal? Just 1. That's a total of 3. So I'm going to start at the back and move forward 3 places. 1, 2, 3. Decimal goes between the 1 and the 8. All right, and then I need to interpret my answer. When it's a word problem, I always want to double check, reread the question, make sure I've answered it. So the question was, how much does she earn each week? All right, so this is in money. So I'm saying she earns $21.875. Well, that doesn't make any sense. That's not how we write money. So what I need to do is go back and round it. So we know money just goes, it's usually like $21.87. I can't just drop the 5. I need to figure out if I'm going to round it up or just leave it as 87. So when I want to round a number, I always look to the number to the right of it. If that number is 5 or greater, then I add 1 to the number I'm rounding. So since this is a 5, I'm going to round this up to 88. So this becomes $21.88. If it's not greater than 5, then I would have just left it as a 7, and it would have been $21.87. All right, so my final answer for this one is she earns $21.88. All right, so hopefully that explains multiplying decimals, really same as multiplying whole numbers, just figuring out the decimal at the end by counting the number of decimal places in your factors. All right, see you soon.